Hey, welcome to the TPP channel, and today we'll be talking about Azulongmon, which is actually an upgrade from the Hexeblaumon deck. Now moving on to the Digitama itself, we're actually playing 4 Chiramon and 1 Upamon. Now both of these Digitama does give you the draw power that this deck needs, but the Chiramon does give you the benefit which allows you to draw during the main phase, because you are actually able to discard pretty decently during the main phase due to that Howling Memory boost or even Azulongmon. And you're not going to be forced into a scenario whereby you're throwing your Digimons into the security just to draw one true Upamon, which will usually end in a very awful death unless you're playing Hexeblaumon. And sometimes leaving Hexeblaumon being in a suspended position does makes your opponent basically have an answer to it very easily, and that isn't very nice for your deck. Starting off with the rookies here, we're actually playing a total of 13. The first one will be Goemon, and this card is pretty nice, especially it does give you the 1 memory when you do actually discard your opponent's Digisource, and this deck does do a lot of that, especially it can combo quite well with the Azulongmon, making it a cheaper cost from its original 5 evolution cost. Next will be the Strawberrymon. Now because this deck does want to find a Lobomon as quick as possible, and you do play the Tamers, so this card does help you search for those two very nicely. Next we're actually playing the Goemon clone. Does the same thing, but actually has a heavier play cost and higher DP, but does the same thing as Goemon. And we are actually playing Gabumon because it's a very strong on place draw 1, and this deck does require to draw the pieces as soon as possible, so this card does help. Now moving on to the champions already, we are starting off with Ikakumon. Now this card is actually all the way back to Speed Tier 1, and this card finally see play because Azulongmon is a very high crit for blue finally, and they are not able to block with a blocker that doesn't have any Digisource, which is very common in this deck. So Azulongmon will be able to deal that 5 security no problem. Or sometimes even combo with the new level 5 Inherit, this is actually able to swing at the opponent for 2 crits, or rather 2 swings, and they are not actually able to block that 2 to 3 crits, which is actually very decent. Next we're actually playing the Colamon, mainly for the 1 cost evolution, because this deck does really want you to ramp up to level 5 or level 6 as soon as possible, so this is why we are not actually playing the Grizzlymon here. Next we're actually talking about Lobomon, and we are playing 3 copies of them because they are very highly valued, and this is a mechanic that every color has to play in my opinion because of the Speed Attacker mechanic. And if you guys have played Duel Master before, Speed Attacker is actually a very strong mechanic that your opponent isn't actually able to deal with it unless they set up a lot of blockers. But sometimes against a deck like Hexeblaumon, the Lobomon will not actually be deterred by any blocker. Next up, we'll be talking about the level 5s, which a total of 8 cards, and it'll be a 4-4 split. The first one will be Hexeblaumon with a very strong evolution effect, trashing one of your opponent's Digivolution card from the bottom of all your opponent's Digimon, and combining it with Goemon, actually, we are actually making a 2 cost evolution, which is very nice given that you do play memory boost, so you're actually able to cheat out that 2 costs. And this does have a very strong inherent ability, which is basically gaining 1 security attack if your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution cards. So the requirement is actually 1 Digimon without Digivolution cards will be enough, which is actually quite the opposite of this new Majiramon introduced in BTO 6. Its evolution effect is similar to Hexeblaumon, but instead it's a top card and only for 1 Digimon. So combining it with Goemon once again, it does give you a 2 cost evolution, and for the inherent ability, it does allow your level 6 to withstand, which is very strong, but the requirement is that your opponent must have no Digimon with Digivolution cards. So in a scenario whereby opponent does have 2 Digimon on the field and does have 1 Digisource, you are not actually able to withstand your Digimon. But if your opponent does play the nursery gaming with you, whereby they don't push out anything for the nursery, you're actually able to abuse that because it technically does achieve the condition of having no Digimon with no Digivolution costs. No Digivolution cards. So I would say these two are my most favorite cards to play in Hexeblaumon Azulongmon deck variant. Next up, we'll be talking about the level 6, which is the MVP of the deck. First up, we do the Azulongmon. So upon Digivolution, you're actually able to trash the bottom card of your opponent Digisource from all your opponent's Digimon, and for each of your opponent Digimon without Digivolution cards, you usually gain 1 memory. So this is actually broken, but because we do look at the 5 cost evolution for it, so most of the time it will be at best just 3 cost evolution, which is pretty fair if you ask me. But the second ability, which does give the blue the new oomph, which is basically for each of your opponent Digimon without Digivolution cards, this Digimon gains security attack +1. So this cards potentially does have a security attack 3 or even 5 in certain games, and if you combine it with the Ikakumon, which I introduced in the champion level, you're actually able to swing for 5 security checks without opponent actually blocking it, which is basically like piercing, which does synergize well, or rather play very well for raid. So, and let's not forget that this is 13k DP, which is very high, and we'll be able to swing at security fairly comfortably. This card will be actually Hexeblaumon, the most handsome card I would say, and I'm a fan of this card. Now this card does have a very strong ability when attacking. You're actually able to trash the bottom 2 Digisource of one of your opponent Digimon, and if your opponent Digimon has no Digivolution cards, this card do gain jamming. So it does make up for the 11k TP it does have, but the second ability is what makes Hexeblaumon so strong, which is basically all of your opponent Digimon without a Digivolution cards can't attack or even block. So this does work very well with Lobomon, which I mentioned earlier again, and opponent will be able, basically bricking, and their level 6 will be just on the field, being like almost like a puppet and not able to swing at you, so this card is very strong. Now to round off the deck, we are actually playing a total of 6 Tamers, 3 Option and 2 level 7s. Now for the Tamer, we are actually doing a 2-4 split with 2 Devis, basically to search the pieces and getting 3 memory, and for Dual Tamer, because this Dual Tamer is simply busted, just because you're actually able to gain 2 memory if your opponent doesn't have a Digimon without Digivolution cards, which is basically if your opponent does play a hardcore deck, they're actually getting punished. And when one of your blue Digimon does attack, you're actually able to suspend this Tamer to trash the bottom 2 evolution cards of one of your opponent Digimon, which is basically a Hexeblaumon in disguise. And with 1 rookie, and if you do have 2 of these, you're actually able to kill off a potentially level 6 Digimon, making it naked straight away. Now, this new Howling Memory boost introduced in BTO 6 makes this deck very nice, because sometimes all you need is just to delay that 1 Digimon attack, and this card does just that, and it does give you the additional effect of the delay, which is able to allow you to gain 2 memory, pushing your turn to more memory in that same turn, allowing you to maximize more gameplay. And of course, given that this is a Azulongmon deck, and you can actually hit for 5 security very easily, we have Omimon, which does have an advanced skill, allowing you to swing for the final security hit and ending the game. Honestly speaking, there's a lot of ways to actually build this Azulongmon deck, but this is my idea and take of it. And if you guys do have any questions regarding this specific deck profile, do feel free to drop a comment and I'll be able to answer them directly. Now, I would say this deck is definitely one of my favorite decks to play, and I wish you guys will enjoy it too.